We are going to start with a new topic today, the name of which is body fluids and circulation. As you are well aware, we know what is a circulatory system, what are two different types of circulatory systems, that is the open circulation and the closed circulatory system. An open circulatory system is seen in lower animal like cockroaches, whereas we human beings show a closed circulatory system. And in a closed circulatory system, we have a pumping organ which is called as the heart, which will pump the blood into the arteries, into the arterioles, into the capillaries, into the venules and the veins, back to the heart. And from the capillaries will come out an interstitial fluid, which will bath the cells. The interstitial fluid has more amount of nutrients and less amount of waste. The cells will use the nutrients, they will put in the waste. Now, this waste results in the formation of a new fluid, which is called the lymphatic fluid. Lymphatic fluid moves away from the cells, it is drained into the lymphatic capillaries. So अब एक नई ड्रेनेज सिस्टम है जिसका नाम है lymphatic system. तो ये lymph goes into the lymphatic capillaries, into the lymphatic vessels, into the lymphatic ducts, back into a vein. On these lymphatic ducts, we see the presence of small kidney shaped organs which are called as the lymphatic nodes. These lymphatic nodes contain white blood cells which filter out the lymph and kill the pathogens. So the human circulatory system consists of both the parts, the blood vascular system and the lymphatic system. The blood vascular system is the delivery system and the lymphatic system is the drainage system. That is what has been told to you. Now, let us start with the blood vascular system. The blood vascular system is made of the connective. The blood vascular system is made of a liquid tissue which is called as blood, and it shows the presence of the pumping organ which is the heart, and it shows the presence of the blood vessels. So to begin with, what is the blood? It's a liquid connective tissue. It is also called as a false connective tissue. False because connective tissue show the presence of a semi-fluid matrix. But in the case of the blood, the matrix is replaced by a liquid plasma. So the plasma is doing the job of the extracellular matrix. So it does not show the presence of semi-fluid matrix or a semi-solid matrix rather. It shows the presence of a liquid plasma which is replacing the matrix. The second thing is, if you see the other connective tissues, then they are made up of fibers, but the blood is a connective tissue which is not made up of fibers. It is made up of the liquid part which is called as the blood plasma, which forms around 55% of the blood, and the cells or the formed elements that form about 45% of the blood. The formed elements are red blood cells, white blood cells, and the blood platelets. The blood platelets, which are also called as the thrombocytes. Now, one interesting thing to note is these formed elements, that is the red blood cells, white blood cells, and the platelets, they are not produced in the blood. They are produced at other sites like the bone marrow, and from the bone marrow, they are put into the bloodstream. The plasma, majority of the plasma is water, 90 to 92% of the plasma is water. 6 to 8% of the plasma is plasma proteins. These plasma proteins contain fibrinogen, albumin, and globulin. Fibrinogen is a clotting factor. Albumin, it helps in maintaining the osmotic balance of the blood. It also helps in the transport of hormones. It is the most abundant plasma protein. Globulin belongs to a class of proteins which is consisting of alpha, beta, and the gamma globulins. Okay, and within that you have immunoglobulins. The gamma globulins are the immunoglobulins, and these immunoglobulins, they are involved in the defense system. Albumin maintains the osmotic balance of the blood. का मतलब ये होता है कि अगर blood में से आप albumin निकाल दोगे, then the blood will become hypotonic. Water will start moving into the red blood cells, causing the bursting of the RBCs. So that is why the liver will put albumin into the blood. It will increase the osmolarity of the blood. The osmolarity of the blood and the cells will become isotonic. Now the red blood cells will neither gain or now lose unnecessary water. That is the job of albumin, and that is what it means that albumins help to maintain the osmotic balance. Now, in all this, we know that fibrinogen is a clotting factor. So I take the blood. From the blood, I remove the cells. Now I got the plasma. From the plasma, I remove the clotting factors. Now the liquid I'm left with is called as the serum. Okay. So what is the serum? Serum is plasma minus the clotting factors. Serum has lot of applications in medicines because we produce a serum that is rich in antibodies from hyperimmunized animals like horses, and we give it to the patient as a form of artificial passive immunity. For this, you can refer my health and disease ka synopsis. The plasma contains other substances also, like small amount of sodium, calcium, magnesium, bicarbonate, chloride ions, glucose, amino acids, lipids, etc., and also waste like urea, and also hormones. So that will be the remaining part of the plasma other than the plasma proteins. So if we talk about the cells, the first one is the RBCs, that is the red blood cells, or commonly called as the erythrocytes. So now then, dear students, what is the count of the red blood cell in a healthy adult human being? A healthy adult shows the presence of 5 to 5.5 million red blood cells per cubic millimeter of blood. That would be the exact count of an adult male. In an adult female, it could be 4 to 4.5 million. The process of formation of these red blood cells is called as erythropoiesis. Okay, and such organs which perform erythropoiesis under the influence of the erythropoietic hormone are called as the erythropoietic organs. And in the adult, the main erythropoietic organ is the red bone marrow of the long bones. During our embryonic stages, erythropoiesis can also be done by the yolk sac, followed by the fetal stages where the erythropoiesis is also done by the kidneys and the spleen. Now, the lifespan, average lifespan of the red blood cell is about 120 days. And after the 120 days, the red blood cells are destroyed in the spleen. So that is why the spleen is called the graveyard of the red blood cells. Some of the splenic capillaries are very narrow, so when the old red blood cells try to pass through them, they squeeze and they are ruptured. The spleen is a very interesting organ, as I have told you. The spleen is located above the stomach, and the spleen shows the presence of a region which is called as a pulp, which shows the presence of young red blood cells. So when the body has a trauma, like an accident where it has lost a lot of blood, then the spleen will also provide red blood cells immediately into the system. So spleen is performing both the functions. It is a graveyard for the old and the worn out red blood cells, and the spleen is a, I will say, a maternity ward, especially an emergency blood bank for young RBCs. Then, dear students, the shape and the structural modifications of erythrocytes are many, with the help of which the erythrocyte is able to carry a huge amount of oxygen and hemoglobin. Okay, what are they? First, it is biconcave, so provides more surface area for exchange of gases. A mature red blood cell is enucleated without any nucleus, so that it shows the presence of hemoglobin. One red blood cells can have 260 million molecules of hemoglobin. There is no endoplasmic reticulum. There is lack of Golgi bodies. So the space that is left by the nucleus and all these organelles is occupied by hemoglobin. On top of that, the red blood cell also does not show the presence of the mitochondria. So it has to perform anaerobic respiration, and that is advantageous for the red blood cells, or else the mitochondria would have used the oxygen. The average red blood cell contains about 260 million molecules of hemoglobin, and one hemoglobin in its quaternary form contains two alpha and two beta chains. Each chain contains Fe, so one hemoglobin has got 4 Fe, it can carry 4 oxygens. A hemoglobin is a conjugated protein where 95% of it is a protein part called globin, and 5% of it is a prosthetic group which is called heme, which is a iron porphyrin pigment system. Iron porphyrin pigment system. just like chlorophyll is a magnesium porphyrin pigment system. On an average, the healthy count of a hemoglobin in an adult should be about 12 to 16 grams per 100 ml of blood. And the job of the red blood cell is to bring about the transport of respiratory gases, mainly oxygen, followed by carbon dioxide. The second type of cells, which we commonly called as the leukocytes or the white blood cells, they get their name because of the lack of hemoglobin. If you compare them with a red blood cell, they are nucleated, short lived, and their count is around 6,000 to 8,000 per cubic millimeter of blood. So if you see, the red blood cells outnumber the white blood cells by 600 is to 1. Depending upon their cytoplasm, the leukocytes are classified as granulocytes and agranulocytes. Granulocytes are those which show the presence of cytoplasmic granules. Agranulocytes lack these granules. Now, the granulocytes, depending upon their staining properties, are classified as neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils, and agranulocytes are classified as lymphocytes and monocytes. So, let us take a quick recap on these cells. To begin with, neutrophils. If you talk about the total leukocyte count, TLC, that is 6,000 to 8,000. From that, 60 to 65% is the neutrophils. So if the MCQ is, okay, which of the leukocyte has the maximum count, our answer is going to be neutrophils. These are phagocytotic cells. Okay, they can perform phagocytosis of live pathogens. They have a multi-lobe nucleus, 3 to 5 lobe. As the age of the neutrophil increases, you will see that the number of lobes seem to be more. Okay, these are having different shapes of the nucleus lobes, so they are commonly also known as PMNLs, that is polymorphonuclear leukocytes. They are commonly called as the polymorphonuclear leukocytes, PMNLs, polymorphonuclear leukocytes, PNMLs. Okay, then the eosinophils, their count, their function is to resist infections. What I mean by resist infection is they produce chemicals that work against histamine, so they prevent allergic reactions. That is why अगर आपके patient को कोई allergy है, that time the count of eosinophils will increase, and that is called as eosinophilia. So eosinophilia is a condition in which the count of eosinophils in. So now one thing is very clear with us, that eosinophils help us to fight allergies because they are antihistaminic. सो अगर आपके पेशेंट में एलर्जी की रिएक्शन है तो डेफिनेटली इयोसिनोफिल्स का काउंट बढ़ेगा, और इस कंडीशन को हम बोलते हैं इयोजिनोफिलिया. राइट स्टूडेंट्स, देन वी हैव गॉट दीज बेसोफिल्स विच आर 0.5 to 1%. अगर हमको यहाँ पे पूछा जाए कि लीस्ट काउंट किसका है, तो हम डेफिनेटली आंसर देंगे बेसोफिल्स. Okay, what do these basophil cells do? They secrete histamine. Histamine is involved in inflammatory reactions. Serotonin, which is a vasoconstrictor, and heparin, which is an anticoagulant. Then, in the granulocytes, we have lymphocytes, which are 20 to 25%, and they provide immunity. The lymphocytes are of two types, the B lymphocytes and the T lymphocytes. And the details have been done in Health and Disease. The last category of these cells are the monocytes, which are kidney shaped, where the nucleus has a kidney shaped structure, and they're about 6 to 8%. They are also phagocytotic. So and we have called them as scavengers. So they are phagocytotic cells. Why do we call them scavengers? Because our medical books say that they help to remove cellular debris when the cells are dead. When the pathogen has been killed by the antigen, at that time there is a debris called antigen antibody debris that is also being removed by the monocytes. तो मैं इनको कहता हूं ये अपने बॉडी के ब्लड की म्युनिसिपैलिटी है, जो जो सफाई का काम करती है by doing phagocytosis. So we call them as the scavengers of the blood. Then we move on to the third type of cells, which are not actually real cells. Why I'm saying that they're not real cells? Because in your bone marrow, there is a large cell called as megakaryocyte. And this megakaryocyte gets broken down and results in the formation of these blood platelets that I just shown. So that is why they are not real cells. They are non-nucleated disc-like structures. Their normal count is 1.5 lakh to 3.5 lakhs per cubic millimeter of blood. And their main job is to bring about blood clotting. Okay. And there is a theory called as the enzyme cascade theory, where blood clotting factors are used. One of the clotting factors is produced by the blood platelets. It's a very important clotting factor. So the